Baking a spiced apple pie from scratch. A soothing autumn baking story. The October afternoon light slants through the kitchen window in that particular golden way that only happens in autumn, painting everything in warm amber tones that make even the most ordinary objects, the ceramic flour canister, the wooden spoon holder, the copper measuring cups, look like they belong in an oil painting. You stand in this kitchen, in this light, feeling the pull of something ancient and essential calling you toward creation, toward making something beautiful and nourishing with your own two hands. It's been one of those weeks, the kind where stress accumulates like dishes in a sink, where anxiety hums constantly in the background, like a refrigerator's compressor, where you move through days without quite feeling present in any of them. Work deadlines, family obligations, the endless scroll of news and notifications, the weight of modern life pressing down until you can barely remember what it feels like to just be, to exist in a moment without fractured attention, without the constant pull of a dozen competing demands. But today, this afternoon, something in you said enough, said stop, said you need to do something different, something with your hands, something that requires your full attention and gives back more than it takes. And so you thought of your grandmother's apple pie, the one she made every autumn without fail, the one that filled her house with such an intoxicating aroma that neighbors would knock on the door just to say hello and hope for an invitation to stay for dessert. You have her recipe card. It's tucked in your recipe box, a 3x5 index card yellowed with age. Her handwriting in blue ballpoint pen, slightly faded but still legible. Flour fingerprints along the edges where she touched it with dusty hands. You haven't attempted it before. It seemed too daunting, too much work, too easy to just buy a pie from the bakery section of the grocery store. But today, somehow, the work is the point. The process is what you need, not just the result. So you've decided. This afternoon, you're going to bake an apple pie from scratch. Every part of it, no shortcuts, no store-bought crust or pre-sliced apples. From nothing to something, from raw ingredients to finished masterpiece, using nothing but your hands and your grandmother's guidance from across the years. And already, just having made the decision, you feel something in your chest begin to loosen, some knot of tension starting to unwind. Baking, you've read, is therapeutic. The psychologists say so. Something about the repetitive motions, the precise measuring, the sensory engagement, the tangible result. It requires enough focus to quiet the anxious mind, but follows enough structure that you're not overwhelmed by decisions. It's creative, but not chaotic. It's productive, but not pressured. And at the end, you have something real, something you can see and touch and share. Proof that you spent your time making beauty in a world that often feels like it's falling apart. You move through your kitchen now with new purpose, beginning the process of gathering everything you'll need. The kitchen itself is modest but well-loved, a space you've slowly accumulated tools and equipment for over the years. A stand mixer inherited from an aunt. Cast iron skillets from your mother, wooden spoons collected from various kitchen shops and craft fairs, each one slightly different, each one perfect for different tasks. The countertop is old butcher block, scarred and worn from years of use but still solid, still beautiful in that way that only well-used things can be. First, the dry ingredients. You retrieve the 5-pound bag of all-purpose flour from the pantry, hefting its weight. There's something satisfying about the substantial heft of flour, the way it settles in the bag, the cloud of fine white powder that puffs up when you fold back the top. Next to it, the white sugar and the brown sugar, both in their respective containers. The brown sugar has hardened slightly, as brown sugar does, but you know the trick. A piece of bread in the container overnight, or a few seconds in the microwave with a damp paper towel. For now, it will work as is. The spices live in a cabinet above the stove, and you open it to reveal your collection. Cinnamon in a large jar because you use so much of it. Nutmeg whole and ready to be grated for maximum freshness. Allspice in a smaller jar, cloves. If you decide to add them, maybe even a hint of cardamom for complexity. Just opening this cabinet releases a waft of scent. All those warm spices mingling together, the aromatic essence of autumn and comfort and home. Butter is in the refrigerator, the good European-style butter with higher fat content that you bought specifically for baking. It needs to stay cold, very cold until the moment you use it. That's the secret to flaky pie crust. Your grandmother's note on the recipe card reminds you: cold butter, cold water, light touch. 3 rules that separate mediocre crust from exceptional. And finally, the stars of the show, the apples. You selected them carefully 2 days ago at the farmer's market, spending far longer than was probably necessary examining each one, looking for the right size, the right firmness, the right balance of varieties. You bought 6 large apples, 3 Granny Smiths for their tartness and their tendency to hold their shape when baked, 3 Honey Crisps for their sweetness and the lovely texture they bring to a filling. They sit now in a bowl on the counter where you've been admiring them. Their skins perfectly imperfect, red and green and gold, each one a small work of natural art. You lift your grandmother's recipe card from its place in your wooden recipe box, the box itself another inheritance, this one from your mother's mother, hand-carved with a floral pattern by your grandfather in the 1940s. The card is soft with age, the paper fibers loosening, the blue ink bleeding slightly into the pulp, but the words are clear enough. Evelyn's apple pie crust, 2 1/2 cups flour, 1 TSP salt, 1 cup cold butter, 1/4 to 1/2 cup ice water. Filling: 6 large apples, 3 4-cup sugar, 1 4-cup brown sugar, 2 tea flour, 1 TSP cinnamon, 1/4 TSP nutmeg, 1 tea lemon juice, 2 tea butter. Cold butter makes flaky crust. Don't overwork dough. Apples should heap high. They'll cook down. And at the bottom, in slightly different ink as if added years later, made with love always. You run your finger gently over those words, feeling the slight indent where the pen pressed into the paper. Made with love, always. That's what you're doing here today, you think. Making something with love. Making love tangible through the alchemy of baking, the transformation of raw materials into nourishment and comfort and beauty. The afternoon stretches ahead of you, hours of unscheduled time, and for once the emptiness of your calendar feels like luxury rather than lack. No meetings to attend via video call, no deadlines pressing, no obligations pulling you away from this kitchen, this project, this intentional act of creation. Just you and flour and butter and apples and time. All the time you need to do this right, to do it slowly, to be fully present with each step rather than rushing toward the finish. You wash your hands thoroughly at the sink, soaping them twice, rinsing in water that runs almost too hot, then drying them on the clean kitchen towel that hangs from the oven door handle. The ritual of hand washing feels significant somehow, like you're preparing yourself not just physically but mentally and emotionally for what comes next. You're washing away the stress of the week, the anxiety of the news cycle, the fractured attention of modern life. When your hands are clean and dry, you're ready to begin. The wooden cutting board comes out, the large one with a slight hollow in the center from decades of knife work. The measuring cups and spoons arranged in order of size on the counter. The pastry cutter with its curved blade and wooden handle, smooth from years of use. The rolling pin, marble, heavy and cold. The pie plate, ceramic with a scalloped edge, cream-colored and beautiful. Each tool has its purpose, its place in the process, and laying them out feels like setting a stage before a performance. You're going to start with the crust because it needs time to rest in the refrigerator, and while it rests, you can prepare the filling. This is the rhythm of baking. Certain steps must come first, must be completed before others can begin, creating a structure that's almost meditative in its insistence on sequence and patience. You can't rush. You can't skip ahead. You have to trust the process and follow it step by careful step. The afternoon light continues to slant through the window, and somewhere outside a neighbor is raking leaves, the rhythmic scraping sound drifting in through the window you cracked open to let in the October air. The temperature is perfect, cool enough that your kitchen won't overheat from the oven later, warm enough that you're comfortable in just a sweater. Perfect pie baking weather, your grandmother would have said. She believed weather mattered for baking, that humidity and temperature affected how dough behaved, and you found she was right about that, as she was right about so many things. You take a deep breath, centering yourself, and reach for the flour canister. It's time to begin, time to transform these separate ingredients into something unified and delicious. Time to bake a pie from scratch, to engage in this ancient human practice of taking raw materials and turning them into comfort and nourishment. Time to quiet your anxious mind through the focused work of your hands. The kitchen is ready. The ingredients are assembled. Your grandmother's wisdom waits on that yellowed index card, and you, standing in the golden October light, are ready to create, ready to focus, ready to find peace in the simple, profound act of baking an apple pie from scratch. Let's begin. The measuring cup in your hand is a solid, reassuring weight, stainless steel, the kind with a long handle and clear markings on the side. You dip it into the flour canister, the fine white powder parting and rising around the cup's edges like water around a boat's prow. The flour has a faint, pleasant smell, earthy and clean. The scent of wheat and milling and ancient grain turned to powder. 2½ cups, the recipe calls for. You measure carefully, overfilling each cup and then using a butter knife to level it off, scraping the excess back into the canister. This precision matters in baking in a way it doesn't in cooking. Baking is chemistry, your grandmother always said, and chemistry requires exact proportions. Too much flour and your crust will be tough and dry. Too little and it won't hold together. The measurements matter. You dump each measured cup into your largest mixing bowl, the ceramic one with the blue stripe around the rim, and watch as the flour forms soft peaks and valleys in the bowl's curve. After 2½ cups, you add a teaspoon of salt. Not table salt, but kosher salt, the kind with larger flakes that distribute more evenly. The salt disappears into the flour, invisible but essential, the element that will bring out all the other flavors, that will make the butter taste more buttery and the apples more appley. You stir the flour and salt together with a fork, making sure they're evenly distributed, and already the simple act of stirring is beginning to work its magic on your mind. The repetitive motion, the gentle scraping of fork tines against ceramic, the visual satisfaction of watching the mixture become uniform. It's calming in a way that's hard to explain but easy to feel. Your breathing slows, your shoulders drop. The constant mental chatter that's been your companion all week begins to quiet. Now for the butter. You take the wrapped package from the refrigerator, and even through its paper covering, you can feel how cold it is, how firm. This is crucial. The butter must be cold, almost but not quite frozen, because cold butter creates steam pockets when it bakes, and those steam pockets are what make the crust flaky and tender rather than dense and tough. You unwrap the butter and place it on your cutting board, then use a sharp knife to cut it into small cubes, maybe half-inch squares. The butter is hard enough that cutting requires real pressure, the knife making a slight squeaking sound as it passes through. You work methodically, cutting the pound into tablespoon-sized pieces first, then cutting each piece into smaller cubes, until you have a small mountain of yellow butter cubes, each one glistening slightly in the afternoon light. These butter cubes go into the bowl with the flour and salt, and you use your fingers to toss them gently, coating each piece with flour. This helps keep them from sticking together and ensures they'll distribute evenly through the dough. The butter is so cold that your fingertips begin to ache slightly from touching it, and you work quickly, not wanting your hand heat to soften the butter before you're ready. Now comes the part that requires both patience and attention, cutting the butter into the flour. You pick up your pastry cutter, a tool that looks a bit like a potato masher, but with 5 or 6 curved blades instead of a flat plate. It's designed specifically for this task, for working fat into flour, and your grandmother's pastry cutter, which you're using now, has been doing this job for probably 60 years. You press the pastry cutter down into the flour and butter mixture, the blades catching butter cubes and pressing them flat, breaking them into smaller pieces, distributing them through the flour. Then lift and press again in a different spot. Lift and press. Lift and press. The motion is repetitive but not monotonous. You have to pay attention, have to work methodically around the bowl, have to keep going until the butter is cut down to the right size. The right size, according to your grandmother's note, is pea-sized pieces. This is the goal you're working toward. Butter chunks no bigger than a pea, with some larger pieces the size of lima beans scattered throughout for extra flakiness, all coated in flour, distributed evenly through the mixture. It takes time. Your arm begins to feel the work, the pressing down and lifting up over and over. but the physical effort is satisfying, the same satisfaction that comes from kneading bread or chopping vegetables. The simple pleasure of using your body to accomplish something concrete. And as you work, you watch the mixture transform. At first, it's obviously flour with obvious butter chunks. But gradually, as you continue cutting, the butter breaks down smaller and smaller, becoming integrated with the flour, turning the white powder slightly yellow, creating something that looks like coarse meal or very thick, clumpy sand. Some pieces of butter remain distinct, those pea-sized and lima bean-sized chunks that will create flakiness. But overall, the butter and flour are becoming unified. This process probably takes 10 minutes, maybe more. You're not rushing. You're focused entirely on this single task, cutting butter into flour until the mixture reaches the right consistency. And in this focus, you find something that's been absent from your life lately: presence. You're not thinking about work deadlines or family obligations or political anxieties or anything else beyond this bowl, this pastry cutter, this gradual transformation of separate ingredients into something unified. This is mindfulness, you realize. Not the formal meditation kind where you sit cross-legged focusing on your breath, though that has its place, but the everyday kind, the practical kind, the kind that happens when you're so absorbed in a task that everything else falls away. The psychologists call it flow state, this sense of being completely present in what you're doing. Bakers have known about it for centuries, maybe millennia, this trance that comes from repetitive handwork, this peace that emerges from focused creation. Finally, the mixture looks right. Mostly fine and powdery, but with those pea-sized and lima bean-sized pieces of butter scattered throughout, each one coated with flour, looking like small yellow gems in a matrix of white. You set down the pastry cutter and use your hands to gently toss the mixture, checking that the butter is evenly distributed, breaking up any extra-large chunks you find, satisfied with the texture you feel between your fingers. Now comes the water. This is the step that transforms the mixture from something that looks like coarse meal into actual dough, and it requires careful attention and a light touch. Too much water and the dough will be tough. Too little and it won't hold together. You need just enough, just barely enough, to make the flour and butter cohere into a workable dough. You've prepared your ice water ahead of time, a measuring cup filled with water and ice cubes, sitting on the counter getting colder while you work the butter into the flour. Now you fish out the ice cubes and begin to drizzle the water into the flour mixture, 1 tablespoon at a time, stirring gently with a fork after each addition. The first tablespoon disappears into the mixture, absorbed so quickly it seems like it wasn't even there. The second tablespoon does the same, but with the third, you begin to see small clumps forming, flour particles clinging together in little clusters. Fourth tablespoon, more clumps. Fifth tablespoon, larger clumps. The mixture is beginning to look less like meal and more like dough, though it's still quite shaggy and loose. You add a 6th tablespoon, stirring gently, and now the mixture is starting to come together in earnest. Large clumps form, and when you press them with your fingers, they hold together instead of crumbling apart. This is the turning point, the moment when separate ingredients become unified dough, and it feels almost magical, even though you know it's just chemistry, just water hydrating proteins and starches, creating structure through the simple interaction of H2O with flour. 1 more tablespoon, perhaps, stirring gently, watching carefully. The dough is now holding together in one large, shaggy mass, though there are still dry flour patches in the bottom of the bowl. This is right. This is what you want. If you added more water to eliminate those dry patches completely, you'd end up with too much water overall, and the dough would be tough. Instead, you dump the entire shaggy mass out onto your clean counter and use your hands to gently press it together, incorporating those last dry bits of flour, forming the mass into something cohesive. The dough feels cool against your palms, slightly sticky but not wet, with a tender give when you press on it. You work it just enough to bring it together, maybe 10 to 15 gentle kneads, pressing it flat and folding it over, pressing and folding, and then stop. Overworking pie dough develops gluten, and gluten makes crust tough instead of tender and flaky. The dough is ready. You divide it into 2 portions, making one slightly larger than the other. The larger piece will be your bottom crust, the smaller piece your top. You form each portion into a flat disc about an inch thick, which will make rolling easier later, and wrap each disc tightly in plastic wrap. The plastic clings to the dough's surface, sealing it away from air that would dry it out. These wrapped discs go into the refrigerator, onto the middle shelf where they'll chill for at least an hour, ideally longer. This chilling serves multiple purposes. It allows the gluten that did develop to relax, making the dough easier to roll. It firms up the butter again after your hands warmed it slightly, and it gives the flour time to fully hydrate, distributing moisture evenly throughout the dough. Patience is essential in baking. Some steps simply cannot be rushed, and chilling is one of them. You close the refrigerator door and stand for a moment, feeling a sense of accomplishment. The crust is made. The foundation of your pie exists now, wrapped and chilling, and in an hour it will be ready to roll. For now, you can turn your attention to the filling, to those beautiful apples waiting in their bowl, to the spices and sugar, and the transformation they'll undergo together. But first, you wash your hands again, scrubbing away flour and butter, rinsing under warm water, drying thoroughly. You wipe down your work surface, gathering the small amount of flour that's scattered across the counter during the dough-making process. You put away the pastry cutter and the measuring cups, rinse out the mixing bowl. A clean workspace for the next phase of work. This too is part of the ritual, the care and attention you bring to each step. The kitchen smells faintly of butter now, that rich, dairy-sweet scent that's one of the foundational aromas of baking. It mingles with the afternoon air coming through the cracked window, autumn cool and carrying hints of wood smoke from someone's fireplace and the earthy scent of fallen leaves. October is a feast for the senses, and your kitchen is becoming a cathedral of scent and sensation, a space consecrated to creation and comfort. You turn your attention now to the apples. 6 of them, carefully selected, waiting to be transformed. They sit in a white ceramic bowl, a study in color and form, the Granny Smith's green with occasional red blush, the Honeycrisp's red with golden undertones, all of them round and smooth and perfect. You lift one, a Granny Smith, feeling its weight in your palm, the cool smoothness of its skin, the firm density that promises it will hold its shape when baked. Apples have been feeding humans for thousands of years. They've traveled across continents, been cultivated and selected and bred into hundreds of varieties, inspired myths and stories and songs. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, American as apple pie. These fruits are woven through our cultural consciousness, symbols of health and temptation and home and tradition all at once. You run the apple under cool water at the sink, washing away any residue or wax, drying it with a clean kitchen towel. Then you pick up your vegetable peeler, a simple Y-shaped peeler with a ceramic blade, and position the apple in your left hand while your right hand holds the peeler. You place the blade against the apple's skin near the stem and draw it downward in a smooth motion. The skin parts easily beneath the sharp blade, curling away in a long ribbon of green-red peel, revealing the pale cream flesh beneath. There's resistance at first, the slightest catch as the blade encounters the waxy skin, but then it yields, and the peel comes away cleanly. You rotate the apple slightly and make another downward stroke, another ribbon of peel curling away, and another, and another. The motion becomes rhythmic, almost meditative. Hold, position, peel. Rotate slightly. Hold, position, peel. Your hands learn the movement, the pressure, the angle, and soon you're working without conscious thought. Your mind quiet while your hands do what they have been designed to do for millennia. Prepare food, process what nature provides, transform the raw into the edible. This first apple takes maybe 3 minutes to peel completely. The pile of peel grows in the sink, long ribbons coiled on themselves like apple-scented confetti. The naked apple in your hand looks vulnerable without its protective skin, its flesh pale and already beginning to oxidize slightly, taking on the faintest golden tinge. You set it aside and pick up the second apple, and so you continue. Second apple, third apple, each one requiring the same focused attention, the same repetitive motion. Your right arm begins to feel the work, the small muscles in your forearm engaging over and over. But it's a good feeling, the physical satisfaction of work being done. You're not sitting at a computer moving a mouse. You're not swiping at a phone screen. You're using your body to accomplish something tangible, something you can see and touch and soon taste. By the time you finish the sixth apple, 15 or 20 minutes have passed. Time that existed outside of clock-watching time, measured only by the completion of each apple, by the growing pile of peels in the sink, by the row of 6 naked apples lined up on your cutting board. Your hands smell like apple now, that fresh, slightly sweet, almost perfume-like scent that's unlike any other fruit. It's the smell of orchards in autumn and crisp October mornings, and it makes you smile. You rinse the peels down the garbage disposal and wash your hands once more, then turn to the next task, slicing these peeled apples into the pieces that will become your filling. You select your sharpest knife, a chef's knife with an 8-inch blade that you keep properly sharpened because dull knives are dangerous knives, as your grandmother always said. A sharp knife cuts where you want it to. A dull knife slips and cuts where it wants to. You take the first peeled apple and use the knife to cut it in half from stem to bottom, straight through the core. The knife slices cleanly through the firm flesh with a satisfying crunch, and the two halves fall apart to reveal the star pattern of the seed chamber at the center. 5 points holding 5 seeds, brown and glossy, the potential for future trees locked inside them. It's beautiful, this hidden geometry inside every apple, this reminder that fruit exists to spread seeds, to perpetuate life. You cut a V-shaped wedge from each half, removing the tough core and the seeds. These pieces go into a small bowl for the compost. Then you place each half-cut side down on the cutting board and slice it into thin pieces, maybe a 1/4 inch thick, working carefully to keep them uniform. Uniform slices cook evenly. Thicker pieces would still be firm when thinner pieces have turned to mush. This attention to consistency, this care in the details, is what separates good pies from great ones. The knife makes a rhythmic sound against the cutting board. Thock, 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 thock. Each slice falls away from the previous one, and soon you have a small pile of apple slices, all approximately the same thickness, curved and graceful. These go into a large bowl, your largest bowl, because 6 apples create a surprising volume of slices, and you'll need room to toss them with sugar and spices. You repeat this process with each apple. Halve, core, slice, transfer to bowl. Halve, core, slice, transfer to bowl. The rhythm is soothing, the repetitive motion creating a kind of moving meditation. Your mind is quiet. Your body is engaged. The afternoon light has shifted slightly, grown more golden as the sun drops lower, and the kitchen glows with that particular October warmth that feels both energizing and peaceful at once. By the time all 6 apples are sliced, the bowl is heaping full. The slices are already beginning to brown slightly where they're exposed to air, the natural oxidation that happens when polyphenol oxidase enzymes react with oxygen. It's nothing to worry about. The lemon juice you'll add will slow this process. And once the pie is baked, any browning will be invisible beneath the cinnamon sugar coating. You step back and look at what you've accomplished so far. The dough chilling in the refrigerator, the apples peeled and sliced and ready, the kitchen warm and smelling of butter and apple. You're perhaps halfway through the process and you feel good, calm, centered. The stress that brought you to the kitchen has dissolved somewhere in the work of the past hour, replaced by this sense of purpose and presence. Your hands are busy, and therefore your mind is quiet. This is the magic of baking, the therapy of creation. Now comes the spice blending, and this is where the pie will find its soul, its character, its distinctive flavor that will make people close their eyes when they taste it and murmur with pleasure. Spices are powerful things. Concentrated plant compounds that have traveled across oceans and shaped history, that have been traded as currency and fought over in wars, that can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary with just a teaspoon or two. You open your spice cabinet and begin to gather what you need. First, the cinnamon. Your jar is large because you go through cinnamon quickly. It's your favorite spice, warm and sweet and complex, with its hints of woody spiciness and almost caramel-like sweetness. You twist off the lid and bring the jar to your nose, inhaling deeply. The scent is immediate and powerful, hitting the olfactory receptors in your nose and triggering an instant response in your brain's limbic system, the part that processes emotion and memory. Suddenly, you're 7 years old in your grandmother's kitchen, standing on a step stool beside her while she makes apple pie, and she's letting you sprinkle the cinnamon over the apples, warning you not to use too much because cinnamon is powerful and a little goes a long way. You can see her hands, older hands spotted with age but still strong and capable, and you can hear her voice, and for a moment the years collapse, and she's here with you now, not dead, but present in memory, so vivid it's almost real. This is what scent does. It bypasses the brain's rational centers and goes straight to memory and emotion. Cinnamon means comfort and safety and home. It means holidays and baking and love made tangible through food. And as you measure out a full teaspoon, leveling it carefully with a butter knife, you feel connected not just to your grandmother, but to all the grandmothers and great-grandmothers who came before, all the women and men who have stood in kitchens measuring cinnamon for apple pies, carrying forward this tradition, this delicious ritual. Next, nutmeg. You have whole nutmeg, brown, oval nuts about the size of acorns, and a small grater specifically designed for grating them. Whole nutmeg is far superior to pre-ground. The essential oils that carry nutmeg's complex flavor are volatile and dissipate quickly once the nut is ground. But when you grate it fresh, you get the full force of its warm, slightly sweet, deeply aromatic flavor, with hints of spice and a subtle earthiness. You select a whole nutmeg and hold it against the fine holes of your grater, drawing it downward with firm pressure. The nut resists at first, then begins to release its aromatic powder, reddish brown and fragrant beyond belief. The scent is nothing like cinnamon. Where cinnamon is straightforward and warming, nutmeg is complex and mysterious, with layers upon layers of flavor and aroma. You continue grating, watching the pile of fresh nutmeg grow, until you have a quarter teaspoon. Any more would overpower the pie. Nutmeg is potent and must be used with restraint. You consider allspice, you have it, and it would add another dimension, but decide against it. Sometimes less is more. Sometimes simplicity is more elegant than complexity. Cinnamon and nutmeg will be enough, will be perfect, letting the apples shine while the spices provide supporting harmony. Now for the sugar. The recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup of white granulated sugar and a 1/4 cup of brown sugar. The white sugar provides sweetness and helps create the syrupy juice that will thicken into filling. The brown sugar adds complexity. It's white sugar with molasses, which brings hints of caramel and a deeper, richer sweetness than white sugar alone. You measure each carefully and pour them into a smaller bowl with the cinnamon and nutmeg, then use a fork to stir everything together. The sugar and spice mixture is beautiful, the white sugar spotted with brown sugar and cinnamon and nutmeg, creating a complex pattern of colors and textures. You bring the bowl to your nose and inhale deeply. The scent is incredible, sweet and spicy and warm, the essence of autumn condensed into a bowl of sugar. This is what your kitchen will smell like in a few hours, but magnified 100-fold, baked and caramelized and released into the air by the oven's heat. 2 more ingredients for the filling: flour and lemon juice. The flour, just 2 tablespoons, will help thicken the abundant juices the apples release as they bake. Without it, you'd have a soup instead of a proper filling, with liquid pooling in the bottom of the pie instead of clinging to the apples in a glossy, syrupy coating. The lemon juice, just 1 tablespoon, will brighten all the flavors, add a slight tang that balances the sweetness, and slow the oxidation that turns cut apples brown. You measure the flour and add it to your sugar-spice mixture, stirring to distribute it evenly. Then you squeeze a fresh lemon, straining out the seeds, until you have a tablespoon of juice. The lemon scent is sharp and clean, cutting through the warm sweetness of the spices, adding its own note to the developing symphony of aromas in your kitchen. Now comes the moment of transformation, when all these separate elements become filling. You pour the sugar-spice flour mixture over the bowl of apple slices, then drizzle the lemon juice over top. For a moment, nothing changes. The mixture just sits there on the surface of the apples. But then, you plunge your hands into the bowl and begin to toss everything together. The tactile pleasure of this is extraordinary. The cool, crisp apple slices slide past your fingers. The sugar is grainy and slightly abrasive against your skin. The spices' aromatic oils begin to warm and release from contact with your hands. You lift and toss, turning the apples over and over, ensuring every slice gets coated with the sugar-spice mixture, watching as the white and brown sugar begins to dissolve slightly in the apple's juice, creating the beginning of the syrup that will intensify during baking. Your hands become sticky with juice and sugar. The apples are transforming before your eyes. Where they were pale and plain before, now they're coated in cinnamon brown sugar, glistening with juice and lemon, looking already delicious even in their raw state. The scent rising from the bowl is intoxicating. Apple and cinnamon and nutmeg and lemon all mingling together. The perfume of pie filling, the promise of what's to come. You continue tossing and mixing, using your hands rather than a spoon because hands are gentler and won't break the apple slices. You want some pieces to break down during baking, creating that wonderful saucy texture, but others should maintain their integrity, giving the filling structure and pleasant texture variation. After several minutes of tossing, you're satisfied that every slice is properly coated, that the spices are evenly distributed, that the filling is ready. You set the bowl aside and wash your hands yet again. Your hands are getting so much washing today, but that's part of baking, part of the ritual. Clean hands, clean workspace, careful attention to each step. You dry your hands thoroughly and check the clock. An hour has passed since you put the dough in the refrigerator. It's ready to roll. The anticipation builds as you retrieve the larger disc of dough from the refrigerator, unwrapping it carefully, setting it on your freshly floured countertop. The dough is cold and firm but not rock hard. Perfect rolling consistency. You flour your rolling pin, dust flour over the dough's surface, and position yourself comfortably in front of your workspace. This is the step that separates those who bake from those who merely assemble. Rolling pie dough requires patience, attention, and a light touch. But done properly, it's deeply satisfying, almost meditative. You place your rolling pin in the center of the dough disc and roll forward, away from your body, applying firm but not aggressive pressure. The dough resists at first, then begins to yield, to thin, to spread. You lift the rolling pin, return it to center, and roll backward toward yourself. Then rotate the dough a quarter turn and repeat. Roll forward, roll back, rotate. Roll forward, roll back, rotate. This is the rhythm of rolling dough, alternating forward and back rolls with quarter turns to ensure the dough spreads evenly into a circle rather than becoming oval or irregular. Each roll lengthens the dough in one direction. The rotation ensures you're lengthening equally in all directions. It's geometry and physics combined with the ancient art of dough working. As you roll, you can feel the dough transforming under the pin. What started as a thick disc becomes gradually thinner, more pliable, larger. You add flour as needed, a light dusting under the dough if it's sticking to the counter, a light dusting on top if it's sticking to the rolling pin. Too much flour would make the crust tough, so you use only as much as necessary, just enough to prevent sticking. The dough is changing texture too, warming slightly from the rolling, from contact with your slightly warm hands, from friction with the counter. This is why you started with very cold dough. You're working against the clock now, trying to roll the dough before it warms enough to become difficult to work with. Your movements are efficient, practiced, the rolling pin moving with purpose. After several minutes of steady rolling, the dough has spread into a rough circle maybe 12 inches in diameter. It's beautifully thin, you can almost see through it if you hold it up to the light, but still strong, not torn or cracked. The edges are irregular, which is fine. You'll trim them later. What matters is that you have a circle large enough to line your 9-inch pie plate with some overhang for crimping the edges. Now comes the slightly nerve-wracking part, transferring this delicate sheet of dough from counter to pie plate without tearing it. There are several ways to do this, but the method you prefer, the method your grandmother taught you, is to fold the dough in half, then in half again, creating a quarter circle that's much easier to lift and maneuver. You work quickly now, before the dough can warm further. With floured hands, you gently fold the circle in half, bringing one side over to meet the other. The dough drapes smoothly, folding without cracking. Then you fold this half circle in half again, creating a triangular quarter circle that's 4 layers thick. This you can easily lift without the dough tearing or stretching. Holding this folded quarter circle carefully, you position it over your pie plate so that the point is at the plate's center. Then, gently and carefully, you unfold it. Once, revealing the half circle, then again, revealing the full circle. The dough drapes beautifully into the pie plate, settling into its curves and angles, conforming to the plate's shape with just a little coaxing from your fingers. You work around the edge, pressing the dough gently into the angle where the plate's bottom meets its sides, ensuring good contact, no air bubbles, smooth conformity. The dough is cold enough that it doesn't want to stretch or slump. It holds its shape well. You can feel the satisfaction building. This is going to be a good crust, you can already tell. The dough looks right, feels right. Using your kitchen scissors, you trim the excess dough, leaving about an inch of overhang all the way around. This overhang will be folded under and crimped to create the decorative edge, so it needs to be substantial enough to work with, but not so much that it's bulky or awkward. You work your way around the plate, snipping away excess, letting the scraps fall onto the floured counter to be gathered later. The lined pie plate now sits before you, ready to receive its filling. But first, you should dock the bottom. Use a fork to prick several holes in the dough covering the plate's bottom. These holes will allow steam to escape during baking, preventing the bottom crust from puffing up and creating air pockets. You take a fork and gently but firmly press the tines into the dough, creating neat rows of perforations. The dough is cold enough that the fork marks stay clean and precise. Now, finally, you can fill the pie. You take your bowl of spiced sugared apples. They've been sitting for 30 minutes or so now, and they've begun to macerate, releasing juice that mingles with the sugar to create a light syrup, and begin spooning them into the crust-lined plate. You work carefully, arranging the slices to fit together efficiently, packing them in snugly but not so tightly that they can't settle during baking. The apples pile high, much higher than the rim of the pie plate. This seems impossible. Surely they'll overflow when you put the top crust on. But you remember your grandmother's note on the recipe card. Apples should heap high. They'll cook down. And it's true. Apples release water as they bake, and that water cooks away as steam, and the solid apple flesh that remains is much more compact than the raw slices. What seems like too many apples now will cook down to exactly the right amount. You continue layering apples until you've transferred the entire bowl into the pie. The filling domes several inches above the plate's rim, a mountain of cinnamon sugar-coated apple slices glistening with juice and spice. It looks beautiful, rustic and generous and promising. You scrape the last bits of sugar-spice mixture from the bottom of the bowl and sprinkle them over the top of the filling, ensuring every bit of flavor makes it into the pie. The recipe calls for dotting the filling with butter, small pieces scattered across the top that will melt during baking, enriching the filling, and helping create that glossy, cohesive texture you want in a great apple pie. You cut 2 tablespoons of butter into small pieces, maybe 8 or 10 little cubes, and distribute them across the top of the apple mound, tucking them down between slices so they won't simply roll off. Your bottom crust is filled and ready. Now you need to make the top crust, and you've decided to make a lattice top rather than a solid piece of dough. Lattice takes more time and requires more skill, but it's so beautiful when done well, and it allows steam to escape easily, preventing a soggy top crust. Plus, there's something deeply satisfying about weaving strips of dough over and under each other, creating that classic basket weave pattern. You retrieve the second disc of dough from the refrigerator, unwrap it, and place it on your floured counter. The rolling process is the same as before. Roll forward, roll back, rotate, forward, back, rotate. The dough spreads and thins, becoming a circle slightly larger than what you'd need for a solid top, because you need enough dough to cut into strips and have those strips reach across the pie's diameter. When the dough is rolled to about 12 inches in diameter and uniformly thin, you're ready to cut strips. Using a ruler and a sharp knife, or a pizza cutter, which works beautifully for this, you cut the dough into strips about 3/4 of an inch wide. You work carefully, keeping the strips parallel, making them as uniform as possible. Uneven strips would create an uneven lattice, and while perfection isn't the goal, consistency certainly helps. You end up with 14 strips, each about 8 inches long and 3/4 of an inch wide. These you arrange on a floured baking sheet or piece of parchment paper, keeping them separated so they don't stick together. Some bakers chill the strips at this point to keep them firm for weaving, but you're working quickly enough in a cool kitchen that they should be fine. Now comes the weaving, and this requires patience and a gentle touch. You start by laying 7 strips vertically across the filled pie, spacing them evenly, letting the ends drape over the pie plate's rim. These are your base strips, and everything else will weave through them. Then you fold back every other strip, the 1st, 3rd, 5th, and 7th, folding them back toward the center, exposing the 2nd, 4th, and 6th strips. Across these exposed strips, you lay your first horizontal strip, positioning it near the edge of the pie. Then you unfold the strips you'd folded back, so now they're lying over the horizontal strip you just placed. Next, you fold back the opposite strips, the 2nd, 4th, and 6th, and lay your 2nd horizontal strip parallel to the 1st. Unfold those strips. The pattern is beginning to emerge. Over, under, the classic weave. You continue this process, alternating which strips you fold back, placing a horizontal strip, unfolding, moving to the next horizontal strip. Fold, place, unfold, fold, place, unfold. It's meditative work, requiring focus but not stress, attention but not anxiety. Your hands learn the rhythm, and soon you're weaving almost without thinking about it, watching the lattice pattern emerge like magic under your fingers. The dough strips cross and recross, creating diamonds of negative space through which the cinnamon sugar apples are visible. When all 7 horizontal strips are woven through the vertical strips, you step back to admire your work. The lattice is beautiful, not machine perfect, but handmade perfect, with the slight irregularities that prove human hands created it. The weave is even, the diamonds are roughly consistent, and the overall effect is rustic and charming, exactly what a homemade pie should be. Now you need to seal and crimp the edge. Working your way around the pie, you trim the lattice strips so they overhang the plate's rim by about the same amount as the bottom crust. Then you fold the bottom crust's overhang up and over the lattice strip's ends, sealing them together and creating a thick ridge of dough all around the pie's perimeter. This ridge is what you'll crimp to create the decorative edge, and there are dozens of ways to crimp pie crust, using fork tines, using your knuckles, using special tools. But you prefer the classic method, using your index finger on one hand and your thumb and index finger on the other hand to create a rope-like or fluted edge. You place your right index finger against the inside of the dough ridge and use your left thumb and index finger to press the dough from the outside, creating a V-shape with your right finger at the point. Move an inch and repeat, and again, all the way around the pie. The crimping takes time. You work your way slowly around the entire circumference, creating uniform indentations, building the decorative edge that will turn golden brown and flaky in the oven. Your fingers are getting tired, but you're nearly done, nearly ready to slide this pie into the oven and begin the final transformation. When the crimping is complete, you stand back and really look at what you've created. It's beautiful. The lattice top is woven precisely, the crimped edge is neat and attractive, and through the diamonds of the lattice, you can see the cinnamon sugar apples piled high, promising deliciousness. This pie you've made with your own hands, from scratch, following your grandmother's guidance from across the years. You feel proud. You feel accomplished. You feel connected to something larger than yourself, to tradition, to family, to the long line of human beings who have stood in kitchens making pies, transforming apples and flour and butter into comfort and nourishment. But the pie isn't quite ready for the oven yet. One more step, the egg wash. This is what will give the crust its beautiful golden brown color and appealing shine. You crack an egg into a small bowl, add a tablespoon of water, and whisk it together with a fork until it's uniformly yellow and slightly foamy. Then you dip a pastry brush into the egg wash and gently, carefully, paint it across all the visible crust. The lattice strips and the crimped edge, covering every bit of dough with a thin, even coat. The transformation is immediate. Where the dough was matte and pale before, now it glistens, the egg wash catching the light. In the oven, the proteins in the egg will brown beautifully, creating that appetizing golden color that makes people's mouths water before they've even tasted the pie. As a final touch, you sprinkle coarse sugar over the egg-washed crust, turbinado sugar or sanding sugar, with its large crystals that won't melt away completely in the oven's heat. This will create a slight crunch and sparkle on the baked crust, adding textural interest and visual appeal. The sugar crystals catch the light like tiny diamonds, and you distribute them generously across the lattice and the crimped edge. Now the pie is truly ready. All the preparation is complete, all the components assembled, all the details attended to. What remains is to surrender it to heat and time, to trust the oven to work its magic, to transform these raw ingredients into something transcendent. You preheat your oven to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. Pies need to start at high heat to set the crust quickly, then reduce to lower heat to allow the filling to cook through without burning the crust. While the oven heats, you prepare a baking sheet, lining it with parchment paper or foil to catch any drips from the pie as it bakes. Fruit pies always bubble over slightly, releasing their juices, and these can burn onto your oven's bottom if you don't take precautions. You also create a foil collar for your pie's edge, taking a long strip of aluminum foil and folding it into a ring that will shield the crimped edge from direct heat during the early, high-temperature part of baking. This prevents the edge from browning too quickly and potentially burning before the rest of the pie is done. You'll remove this foil collar partway through baking, allowing the edge to brown in the later stages. The oven beeps, signaling it's reached temperature. Your heart rate picks up slightly. This is it, the moment of commitment. You slide the rimmed baking sheet onto the oven's center rack. Then carefully, reverently, you place your beautiful pie on the baking sheet. The foil collar goes around the edge and you gently close the oven door. Through the oven's window, you can see your pie sitting there, looking raw and pale and unfinished. But you know what's coming. You know what heat will do to flour and butter and sugar and apples. You've set in motion a series of chemical and physical transformations that will take the next hour and a half, and at the end of it, you'll have a masterpiece. You set your timer for 25 minutes. That's when you'll reduce the temperature from 425 to 375 degrees. Then you'll bake for another hour or so, until the crust is deep golden brown and the filling is visibly bubbling through the lattice. Total baking time will be close to 90 minutes, and there's nothing to do now but wait and trust the process. The first 20 minutes pass quietly. You clean your workspace, washing bowls and utensils, wiping down counters, putting away ingredients. The kitchen returns to order, all evidence of the work erased except for the oven's presence, its heat gradually warming the entire room, and the beginning of scent. Faint still, but present, the first hints of butter and apple and cinnamon beginning to perfume the air. By 30 minutes, the scent is unmistakable. You can smell cinnamon distinctly now, that warm, sweet, almost spicy aroma that's one of the most comforting scents humans know. It's joined by butter, by apple, by the toasty smell of flour browning in heat. The kitchen is beginning to smell like a bakery, like autumn, like home and comfort and love made tangible through baking. You reduce the oven temperature to 375 degrees as planned, and you remove the foil collar from the pie's edge. Through the oven window, you can see the crust is beginning to color, taking on the faintest golden tinge, the egg wash doing its job. The filling hasn't started bubbling yet. It's still too early, but you can see that the apples have already begun to settle, the mountain of filling slightly less high than when you put it in the oven. The scent continues to build, becoming more complex, more layered, more intense. The cinnamon is joined by nutmeg now, that mysteriously complex spice adding its earthy warmth to the aromatic symphony. The apples are releasing their fruity sweetness, and the sugar is beginning to caramelize, creating new aromatic compounds that smell of butterscotch and toffee and autumn harvest. You find yourself drawn to the oven, checking on the pie more often than necessary, watching its progress through the window. This is part of the joy of baking, witnessing the transformation, seeing raw dough become golden crust, seeing pale filling become bubbling, glossy, perfectly cooked fruit. It's magic, even though you know it's science. It's miraculous, even though you know it's just heat and time and chemical reactions. By 45 minutes in, the crust has taken on a lovely light golden color, and you can see the first signs of bubbling in the filling. A few bursts of juice appearing through the lattice diamonds, thick and syrupy and cinnamon brown. This is the sign that the filling is cooking, that the apples are breaking down and releasing their juice, that the flour is thickening everything into that perfect consistency between solid and liquid. The scent has become overwhelming now in the best possible way. Your entire house smells like apple pie. Every room, every corner, every breath you take is perfumed with cinnamon and nutmeg and baked apples and buttery crust. If you could bottle this scent and sell it, you'd make a fortune. It's the scent of comfort, of safety, of home, of love. It's the scent that makes people stop whatever they're doing and follow their noses to the kitchen, drawn irresistibly to the source. And the psychological effects are real. That scent is working on your brain right now, triggering memories and emotions, releasing feel-good neurotransmitters, creating a sense of well-being and contentment. The stress you felt this morning, the anxiety that's been your constant companion all week, it's gone, dissolved in the alchemy of baking, replaced by this deep satisfaction, this sense of having created something meaningful and beautiful. You continue your vigil, checking the pie every 10 or 15 minutes, watching the crust darken from light gold to deeper gold to the perfect burnished bronze that signals doneness. The filling is bubbling vigorously now, thick juices erupting through all the lattice openings, bubbling and hissing and releasing fragrant steam. The apples have cooked down substantially. That impossible mountain of filling has settled into the pie plate, condensed by heat and the evaporation of water, becoming exactly the right amount. At the 70-minute mark, you begin checking more carefully, looking for the signs that the pie is done. The crust should be deep golden brown, not pale, not burnt, but that perfect bronzed color that promises flaky, buttery deliciousness. The filling should be bubbling vigorously throughout, not just in one or two spots, but across the entire surface visible through the lattice. The juices should look thick and syrupy rather than thin and watery, indicating that the flour has done its job of thickening. At 85 minutes, everything looks perfect. The crust is gorgeously golden, darker at the edges where it crimped, lighter but still beautifully colored across the lattice. The filling is bubbling enthusiastically, thick juice rising through every diamond of the lattice, and you can see chunks of apple tender and translucent beneath the syrup. The coarse sugar you sprinkled on top has caramelized slightly, creating a sparkly, crunchy coating on the crust that catches the light. This is it. This is done. You turn off the oven and open the door carefully. A wave of heat and apple cinnamon-scented steam rolls out, washing over you like a warm embrace. Using your oven mitts, thick quilted ones that protect your hands from the intense heat, you carefully slide the baking sheet with the pie toward you. Lift it with both hands, supporting it from underneath, and transfer it to the cooling rack you've set up on your counter. The pie sits there, still bubbling, still hissing softly, radiating heat and aroma. It's magnificent. The lattice crust is woven perfectly, golden brown and flaky looking even now. The crimped edge is picture perfect, each indentation distinct and beautiful. Through the lattice diamonds, you can see the filling, thick and glossy and studded with tender apple pieces, cinnamon brown and glistening. A few spots where the juices bubbled over have caramelized on the crust or dripped onto the parchment paper, creating small puddles of apple-flavored candy that smell incredible. You step back and just look at it. This pie you've made from scratch, from nothing but raw ingredients in your own two hands and your grandmother's guidance. Pride wells up in your chest, almost overwhelming in its intensity. You made this. You, who started this afternoon feeling stressed and anxious and disconnected, you transformed flour and butter and apples and spices into this beautiful thing, this work of edible art, this piece of tradition carried forward into the present. The pie needs to cool for at least 2 hours before you can cut into it. If you cut too soon, the filling will be too liquid and will run everywhere rather than holding its shape in neat slices. This waiting is torture, especially with the pie sitting right there smelling absolutely incredible, but it's necessary. The filling needs time to set, for the flour to fully do its thickening work as the pie cools, for everything to firm up enough to be sliceable. So you exercise patience, the same patience you've been practicing all afternoon, the patience that baking demands and rewards in equal measure. You leave the pie on its cooling rack and move away, giving yourself something else to focus on. You make yourself a cup of tea, something simple and complimentary. maybe chamomile or a light black tea. Nothing that will compete with the apple pie when you eventually eat it. While the tea steeps, you clean the last few dishes, wipe down the oven, sweep the floor. The kitchen has been your workspace for hours now, and it shows. There's flour dusted across counters, cinnamon scattered near where you mixed the filling, apple peels that escaped the garbage disposal and ended up in the sink. You attend to each mess with the same care and attention you brought to the baking itself, returning the kitchen to order, honoring the space that held your afternoon's work. The pie continues to cool, the bubbling gradually subsiding, the juices settling, the crust contracting slightly as it loses heat. The aroma continues to permeate your home, though it's subtly different now. Less of the sharp cinnamon bite that filled the air while baking more of a mellow, rounded fragrance where all the elements have blended together into one complex, beautiful scent. You take your tea to the living room and settle into your favorite chair, the one by the window where the October afternoon light still streams in, though it's lower now, softer, the day moving toward evening. You can see your kitchen from here, can see the pie on its cooling rack, steam still rising from it in faint wisps, the lattice crust golden and perfect, and you reflect on the afternoon you've spent, on what baking this pie has meant beyond just creating dessert. You think about how your hands were occupied for hours, measuring, mixing, peeling, slicing, rolling, crimping, and how that physical engagement quieted your anxious mind in ways that passive activities never could. You think about the focus required at each step, the attention to detail, the mindfulness of being fully present with flour and butter and apples rather than spinning in worry about past or future. This is what the psychologists mean when they talk about baking as therapy, you realize. It's not just metaphor or pleasant theory, it's real. The repetitive motions, the sensory engagement, the creative expression, the tangible result, all of it works on your nervous system, your brain chemistry, your emotional state. Baking releases endorphins, the research says. It activates the brain's reward centers. It creates a state of flow where time disappears and anxiety dissolves. And beyond the individual psychological benefits, there's the cultural and historical weight of what you've done. You've participated in a tradition that stretches back centuries, millennia, even if you count all forms of baking. You've connected yourself to your grandmother and all the grandmothers before her, to the long line of people who have stood in kitchens, transforming raw ingredients into nourishment and comfort. You've created something that can be shared, that can bring joy to others, that can feed both body and soul. Apple pie itself carries such symbolic weight in American culture. It's the dessert that supposedly defines us, though it actually came from Europe with the colonists. As American as apple pie, we say, and what we mean is wholesome, traditional, comforting home. Apple pie represents harvest and abundance, autumn and Thanksgiving, family gatherings and childhood memories. To bake an apple pie is to participate in something larger than oneself, to take your place in a tradition, to pass forward something valuable from past to present to future. Your tea grows cool as you sit with these thoughts, watching the afternoon light fade, listening to the house settle around you. The pie sits in the kitchen, cooling, settling, becoming itself. And you sit in your chair, also settling, also becoming more yourself. Calmer, more centered, more present than you've been in weeks. Eventually, enough time has passed. The pie has cooled for 2.5 hours now. The filling set, the crust no longer too hot to touch. You rise from your chair and move to the kitchen, drawn by anticipation and the lingering scent of cinnamon and apple. The pie waits for you, beautiful in its rustic imperfection, the lattice slightly irregular, the crimped edge varying a bit in size and shape, all the small markers of human hands rather than machines. You select a knife, a long, thin blade, and wipe it clean to ensure the first cut is perfect. The challenge with pie is that the first slice often falls apart or pulls away messy, but subsequent slices come out clean. You position the knife at what you judge to be roughly the 6 o'clock position of the pie, and press down gently but firmly, cutting through the flaky lattice top, through the tender apple filling, through the bottom crust all the way to the pie plate. The knife slides through more easily than you expected. The crust is tender, the filling is soft but not liquid. You make your second cut, creating a wedge of approximately 1/6 of the whole pie. Then comes the moment of truth. lifting that first slice out. You slide a pie server under the wedge, wiggling it slightly to loosen the bottom crust from the plate, and lift. The slice comes out beautifully. Yes, a few apple pieces tumble out, and yes, some of the filling drips back into the pan. But overall, the slice holds together remarkably well. The layers are visible in cross-section. The golden brown bottom crust, the thick layer of cinnamon sugar apple filling studded with tender fruit, the lattice top crust with its flaky, buttery layers. It's exactly what a slice of apple pie should be, and you feel a surge of pride and satisfaction as you transfer it to a plate. The pie is still slightly warm, not hot, but warm enough that when you add a scoop of vanilla ice cream to the plate beside the slice, the ice cream begins to melt, immediately pooling around the pie slice. Creamy white contrasting beautifully with cinnamon brown. The visual alone is enough to make your mouth water, but the scent is even more compelling. Warm pie and cold ice cream, cinnamon and vanilla, apple and cream. You carry your plate to the table and sit down. For a moment, you just look at it, appreciating the beauty of this simple dessert, this thing you've created. Then you lift your fork, cut through the tip of the slice where crust and filling and ice cream all converge, and bring the bite to your mouth. The first taste is a revelation. The crust is perfectly flaky, buttery and tender, and shattering into delicate layers as you bite into it. The filling is sweet but not cloying, the apples tender but not mushy, providing textural contrast between the softer cooked-down pieces and the firmer slices that held their shape. The cinnamon is present but not overwhelming, warming rather than spicy, complemented by the subtle complexity of nutmeg. The ice cream melts over your tongue, cream and vanilla cooling and contrasting with the warm pie, creating that perfect hot and cold sensation that makes pie a la mode so beloved. You close your eyes, savoring, and you're flooded with memories. Your grandmother's kitchen, autumn Sundays, the whole family gathered around the table, your grandmother bringing out her famous apple pie still warm from the oven, the anticipation as she cut slices, the pleasure of that first bite. The conversation and laughter and connection that happened around the shared experience of eating something made with love. And now you've made that same pie, followed that same recipe, carried forward that tradition. Your grandmother has been gone for 5 years now, but in this moment, eating this pie you made from her recipe, she feels present. Not in any supernatural sense, but in the very real way that traditions carry forward the presence of those who came before us. She lives on in this recipe, in your hands that learned from watching her, in the taste memory you carry and have now recreated. You take another bite and another, savoring each one. The pie is delicious. Genuinely, objectively delicious, not just sentimental. You've made a good pie, a great pie even, and you're allowed to be proud of that. The crust is flaky and tender, the filling is perfectly balanced between sweet and tart. The spices are just right. The apples have the ideal texture. You didn't just follow instructions, you created something excellent. As you eat, you think about what this afternoon has meant, what this pie represents beyond just dessert. It represents time given to creation rather than consumption. It represents attention focused rather than fragmented. It represents the choice to do something difficult and time-consuming because the process itself is valuable, not despite the work, but because of it. It represents connection to tradition, to family, to the long history of humans making food with their hands. And it represents something else too, a form of self-care that goes deeper than bubble baths or face masks or any of the other surface-level things that get labeled self-care. This was self-care that required effort and attention, that asked something of you rather than just providing passive comfort. It was active rather than passive, creative rather than consumptive, generative rather than merely restorative. And perhaps that's the kind of self-care we need most, the kind that engages our hands and minds and senses, the kind that produces something tangible and beautiful and shareable. The pie's scent still fills your kitchen, will continue to fill it for hours yet. Tomorrow you'll have leftover pie for breakfast, a secret pleasure. Pie first thing in the morning when no one's watching. You'll share some with neighbors or co-workers, spreading the joy of homemade pie, maybe even inspiring someone else to try baking from scratch. The physical pie will be consumed over the next few days, but the experience of making it, the peace and presence and satisfaction it created, that will last much longer. You finish your slice and consider having another, but decide to save it. One slice is perfect, is enough, is satisfying, without being excessive. The remaining pie sits on the counter, covered now with a clean kitchen towel, protected but still breathing, cooling completely to room temperature. The October evening has arrived fully now, the light gone from your windows, darkness settling in. Your kitchen is tidy again, the dishes washed, the counters cleaned. Only the lingering scent of cinnamon and apples remains as evidence of the afternoon's work. That and the pie itself, golden and beautiful, a testament to patience and care and the simple magic of transforming flour and butter and apples into something that feeds not just the body but the soul. You feel different than you did when you started this afternoon. Calmer, certainly. More centered, more grounded, more present. The anxiety that drove you to the kitchen has dissolved completely, replaced by satisfaction and contentment and a deep sense of having done something worthwhile. Your hands smell faintly of cinnamon still, even after washing. Your kitchen smells like a bakery. Your heart feels lighter. This is the gift of baking, you think. Not just the pie itself, though that's certainly a gift, but the process, the transformation that happens in the baker as much as in the dough. The way that focusing your attention on something physical and creative quiets the anxious mind. The way that working with your hands connects you to your body and the present moment. The way that following a recipe from someone you loved keeps them present even in their absence. The way that creating something beautiful from simple ingredients reminds you of your own capability, your own creativity, your own worth. You turn off the kitchen lights, leaving just one small lamp burning, and the pie sits in that gentle glow, the lattice crust casting intricate shadows, the crimped edge catching the light. It looks like something from a magazine, but better because it's real, because you made it, because it's imperfect in all the ways that prove human hands shaped it. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges and stresses. That's the nature of modern life, and one afternoon of baking doesn't permanently solve anxiety or worry. But you have this evening, this moment, this sense of peace. And you have the knowledge that when stress builds again, when anxiety threatens to overwhelm, you have this tool, this practice, this refuge. You can return to your kitchen, pull out your grandmother's recipe card, and begin again the meditative process of measuring flour, cutting butter, peeling apples. The ritual will be there, waiting. The transformation will occur again, in the dough, in the filling, in you. The kitchen will fill with the scent of cinnamon and nutmeg, and that scent will work its magic on your nervous system, triggering memory and comfort and home. You'll roll out dough and arrange apple slices and weave a lattice top, and in doing so you'll weave yourself back together. Piece by piece, gentle pressure and patient attention making something whole and beautiful from what felt scattered and anxious. This is what baking offers. Not escape, but engagement. Not distraction, but deep attention. Not avoidance of difficulty, but transformation through it. The apples must be peeled, all 6 of them, one at a time, patient and methodical. The butter must be cut into flour until it reaches the right consistency. The dough must chill and rest. The lattice must be woven carefully, over and under, creating pattern from chaos. Nothing can be rushed. Nothing can be skipped. The process demands your full presence, and in return, it gives you peace. You stand in your darkened kitchen, looking at the pie one more time before going to prepare for bed. The lamplight catches the sugar crystals on the crust, making them sparkle like stars. The lattice weaving is visible even in this low light, over, under, the pattern your hands created, and through those diamond openings, you can see the filling, dark and glossy, promising sweetness and spice and satisfaction. It's just a pie. Flour and butter and apples and sugar and spices, combined and baked. And yet it's so much more than that. It's an afternoon of mindfulness. It's a connection to your grandmother and to tradition. It's proof that your hands can create beauty. It's evidence that slow, patient work yields results that rushing never could. It's a remedy for anxiety, a balm for stress, a pathway to presence and peace. The kitchen will smell like apple pie for days. the scent clinging to curtains and towels and permeating throughout your home. And every time you catch that scent, you'll remember this afternoon, this choice to create rather than consume, this act of care for yourself that took the form of caring for each ingredient, each step, each moment of the process. You reach out and gently touch the pie's crimped edge. It's cool now, firm, perfectly baked. Your fingers come away with a few grains of sugar, and you taste them without thinking, sweet and slightly spiced from their time on the cinnamon-dusted crust. It's delicious. Everything about this pie is delicious. Not just the taste, but the experience of making it. The afternoon spent in purposeful creation, the peace found in patient attention to detail. Tomorrow, when someone asks what you did today, you'll say, "I baked a pie." And that will be true, but incomplete. What you really did was practice mindfulness through repetitive motion. You connected to tradition and family across time. You engaged all your senses in the work of creation. You transformed anxiety into accomplishment through the alchemy of baking. You remembered that your hands can make beautiful things, that simple ingredients can become extraordinary. That slow and patient work yields results that matter. You baked a pie, and in doing so, you found peace. You found presence. You found yourself. The pie sits on the counter, cooling completely now, the filling fully set, ready to be sliced and shared and savored. And you, standing in your kitchen in the gentle lamplight, you too have cooled and settled and become more fully yourself, calmer, more centered, more present. The afternoon's work has transformed you both, pie and baker, each becoming what you were meant to be through the simple magic of flour and butter and apples and heat and time and patient, loving attention. And that, perhaps, is the deepest gift of baking. Not just the pie that results, wonderful though it is, but the transformation of the person who makes it, the peace that comes from focused creation, the reminder that in a world of chaos and anxiety and constant demand, we can still find moments of presence and purpose in the simplest of acts. We can still make beauty with our own two hands. We can still follow recipes passed down through generations, connecting past to present through the eternal ritual of turning raw ingredients into nourishment and comfort and love. The evening deepens. Your house smells of cinnamon and home. A beautiful pie sits on your counter, lattice crust golden in the lamplight. And you are ready for sleep. Not the anxious, fitful sleep of someone whose mind won't quiet, but the deep, peaceful sleep of someone who has spent the afternoon in purposeful creation, who has practiced mindfulness through baking, who is connected to tradition and family and the simple joy of making something beautiful from nothing but flour and butter and apples and love. If this story brought you peace tonight, if it reminded you of the meditative power of creation and the comfort of simple rituals, please consider showing your support with a like and subscribe to Deep Sleep Stories Hub for more quiet nights and restful journeys. May you sleep deeply, wrapped in the imagined scent of cinnamon and baked apples. And may you wake tomorrow knowing that peace can be found in the simplest of acts, that your hands can create beauty, and that sometimes the best remedy for an anxious mind is flour and butter and patient loving attention. Good night, and sweet dreams of warm pie and cool vanilla ice cream, of lattice crusts woven with care, and of kitchens that smell like home and comfort and autumn and love.